Hello, my name is Brandon Sills and welcome to this first Q&A video thingy. So I asked a bunch of people between Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, as well as Discord, to submit some questions that I'd be able to possibly provide some answers for. And that's what we're going to do here today. First question, Robin Flink. If 4/4 would not exist, what signature would you use the most? Probably 9/4, 13/8, 23/8, and 44/16. I mean, I already experiment outside the 4/4 spectrum as much as possible these days just because I find it fun and challenging. Those would probably be my answers if 4/4 didn't really exist. However, you can still do stuff in 3/4 and 7/8 and still have fun with it. It's just a matter of knowing what kind of a pattern you really want to create and how you go about creating something in its entirety or in good structural form with those said time signatures, I guess. Hopefully that answers. Zach Mays asks, what's your favorite drum VSTi for electronic music? For me personally, I find Battery 4 from Native Instruments to be kind of a vital tool for being able to program all of the things that I kind of want to do. Not only do they have a significant amount of samples provided out of the box when you have the application product downloaded, but you also have the ability to insert third-party samples if you choose to use some of your own, whether or not if you've custom designed them, if you just, have a bunch of weird samples that you want to work with or whatever. It tends to be a powerhouse. And there's a variety of other tools out there that are virtually similar. To me personally, Battery has just kind of been my go-to. I've tried experimenting outside of Battery and it just feels a little bit clunky to a degree, getting to work around and speed up my work process a bit. There are some limitations to applications like these where you only get a certain amount that you can load in, but if you know how to work within those limitations, you should be able to fly that application without a problem. And by application, I mean plugins. Next question comes from Patty Bright. Non-music related, what is the meaning of life? This is my mother, by the way. If it's not 42, which is kind of a default answer for a lot of people, I would say my opinion differs greatly from other people as far as this time frame of our existence is concerned, in that if 42 is not the answer, obviously by default, it's treating other people with kindness and respect and being able to prop up others when they need it, because they'll probably be there for you when you need it. Other than that, my opinion on it is virtually similar to what Bill and Ted once said, be excellent to each other. So hopefully that answers that. Next question. Eric Gillespie asks, can you tie your dick in a knot? I mean, I can tie it in a pretzel. Jacob Valentine says, I still have your DI box. Not exactly a question, but one statement that I can respond to. I'm coming to get it at some point. Funny backstory. So we were playing this show on Halloween in 2019. I brought 3 DI boxes because that's normally how I go prepared whenever I'm playing solo or if I have other people that need some sort of line to go into the sound system. And we were playing this venue that didn't exactly have their own DI boxes. They had a box where the snake goes into the mixer. So I just propped everything into that and did my show with that. And I left my DI box behind because I think somebody needed it for their own stuff. And I don't know if it was to pipe out a laptop or an iPod or whatever, but I left it there and said, hold on to it. And I still haven't gotten anywhere near going out to go and get it, or at least ask. Next question. Happy Owl asks, is double tracking on Synth a thing? And there's a huge amount of stuff after it. We'll answer that in a moment. Double tracking on Synth can be a thing. If you're not too worried about phasing issues, then by all means do it, I guess. The one thing I try to tell people almost all the time when it comes to music is it's an experiment. It's a matter of starting with something and working with it and working towards a destination. That destination typically is having a result that you are pleased with that doesn't sound like it detracts from whatever it is that you're working on as far as a project is concerned. If it passes the test, then it goes on to the final product. If there's stereo information there and playing around with it kind of throw things off as far as phasing is concerned, I wouldn't recommend it exactly. You could also do something like do the layering of that same instrument without really tweaking the parameters too much. And then from that, you can take one of those and high pass it, and then the other one low pass it. The high pass is just going to take out some of the low end information, and that low pass is going to take out all that high information. And you can make a hybrid between those two and create something completely different from it without having to worry too much, I think, about phasing issues. But that's, again, something that kind of revolves around experimenting with the music that you're wanting to do and seeing if it works or not. To follow up on the remainder here, will there be any return to some of the music found on the album The Occult? I don't know what the SF stands for, to be honest. Followed by 2021 Anagram. That's probably something I'm going to experiment with during this year or next year. There's a variety of things that I'm reconfiguring right now as we speak to produce not only at least a couple of EPs for the year, but also potentially like a full length album. I know that going the full album is not exactly one of those things that you would want to do in today's current music climate. I don't know exactly if I'm going to do like several EPs or whatever, but some of the B-sides that were left over from that era are going to probably make it onto one of these. So that's some stuff to look forward to. We'll revisit this a little bit later. Frenchy Fries asks, what is your favorite go-to bassline progression for synthwave production that you do? I wouldn't say I exactly have a favorite go-to progression exactly. For me, I kind of experiment with things in the realm of if I have a project open in Reaper, for example, I load up the rescale that I use normally now for creating different ideas and figuring out whether or not if I want to write something in a scale or not or whatever. And I kind of use that as a means to creating either leads or pads or whatever, some sort of texture that gives me the chance to have a bed to lay the bass line in. I also try to have a drum groove that goes with it, making sure that the BPM is where I want it to be. If it seems a little too slow or too fast, I adjust accordingly. I try to have something that gives me room to interpret what the bass line itself could be. Sometimes I do tend to do bass lines first just because it seems like it would work, but then figuring everything out past that is a little bit of work. Replicant was an example of where I started out with a bass line actually, and then just kind of built from that. That bass line primarily is in the key of A sharp, and it has sort of a bounciness to it that I think is Mixolydian or Aeolian, whichever is considered natural minor. They're probably the same thing. I don't know. I'm probably being stupid. If you're doing bass lines, start out with something simple. Program a few things in with pads, leads, some extra stuff in the background or whatever. If the bass line feels like it drives still, then it's a keeper. If the bass line needs to be spruced up a little bit, try adding either thirds or fifths or octaves. And maybe as well, if it seems like it still needs a little extra work, try making the bass line more melodic than the lead and the pad and see how that works. We will go over that at some point in the future as well, I believe. Bubble Point asks, what artist has influenced your style that people wouldn't expect? So the one thing that a lot of people probably have gathered by now is that a lot of the music that I've written over the years seems to be more or less like it belongs in a video game. And that's because video game related music actually inspired me to do a lot of what I do outside of a couple of other things. I would say like the soundtracks for Final Fantasy 6, 7, 12 even at this point, and Chrono Trigger, The Legend of Zelda, like those are the kind of soundtracks that have inspired me on a level to do something completely different from just being like a standard rock slash metal musician on some level. And it's influenced me greatly enough to where I have a better understanding of the way that a song itself can be structured, or the way that you can use instrumentation and notation to convey something completely drastic from what the title itself could be as far as the song is concerned, or add something completely different and curveball people. Pat Garrett asks, what was your first love, synths or guitars? Synthesizers for sure. I never owned a real synthesizer outright until somewhere in the last few years or so. I kind of regret selling the first one I got, but I'll probably wind up picking it up again at some point. Not sure. Jack Slater asks, when do you release your collab with Trent Reznor? One day I'm actually hoping that before he kicks the bucket, I get a chance to at least be in the same room and see the master at work, I guess. I don't know. I'd rather, if there was ever a collaboration, that it would be completely natural. Maybe on some level, I come out of it learning something more than what I already know now. Maybe one day. It's up to him, really. So I wouldn't want to step on his toes with that. But it would be cool one day, just saying. So that's the Q&A. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, by any given chance, please consider going down below the video, hit the thumbs up button, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell, and we'll see you in a future video again at some point. Thank you and have a good day. Yeah.